Okay, as you can see, I've got the closest thing I could get to a world map. Did you know that there are over 5,000 languages spoken across the earth? How many does Google support? Only about 100. Yeah, still a ways to go. Alright, let's do some more questions. Todd writes in, he says, Matt, I have a question. One of my clients is going to acquire a domain name very related to their business and has a lot of links going to it. So he basically wants to do a 301 redirect to the final website after the acquisition. The question is, will Google ban or apply a penalty for doing this 301 redirect? In general, probably not. You should be okay because you specified that it's very closely related. Anytime there's an actual merger of two businesses or two domains that are very, very close to each other, doing a 301 should be no problem whatsoever. If, however, you are like a music site and all of a sudden you are acquiring links from debt consolidation, online, cheap, yada yada yada, that could raise a few eyebrows. But it sounds like this is just a run-of-the-mill sort of thing, so I think you should be okay. Barry writes in, what's the best way to theme a site using directories? Do you put your main keyword in a directory or on the index page? If using directories, do you use a directory for each set of keywords? This is a good question. I think you're thinking too much about keywords and not enough about your site architecture. So this is just for me, but I prefer a tree-like architecture, so everything branches out at nice sort of even paths. And it's also good if things are broken down by topic. So, you know, if you're selling clothes, you might have sweaters as one directory and shoes as another directory or something like that. If you do that sort of thing, what you end up with is your keywords do end up in directories. And as far as directories versus the actual name of the HTML file, it doesn't really matter that much within Google's scoring algorithm. So I think if you break it down by topic, but make sure that those topics match well with the keywords that you expect your users to type in when they try to find your page, then you should be in pretty good shape. Alright, Jody writes in, if an e-commerce site's URLs has too many parameters, so she's got like the punctuation monster barfing over her parameters, and it is unindexable, is it acceptable to use the Google guidelines to serve static HTML pages to the bot to index instead? This is something to be very careful about because if you're not, you can end up veering into an area that's known as cloaking. So again, cloaking is showing different content to users than to Googlebot, and you want to show the exact same content to users as you do to Googlebot. So my advice would be to go back to the question I answered a while ago about dynamic parameters in URLs and to basically see if there's a way to unify it so that users and Google both see the same directory. And if you can do something like that, that's going to be much better. Failing that, you want to make sure that whatever HTML pages you do show, if users go to the same page, they don't get redirected, they don't go somewhere else. They need to see the exact same page that Googlebot saw. That's the main criteria of cloaking, and that's where you're going to have to be careful. John Woolley writes in, he says, I would like to use A/B split testing on my static HTML site. Will Google understand my PHP redirect for what it is, or will they penalize my site for perceived cloaking? If this is a problem, is there a better way to split test? That's a good question. If you can, I would split test in an area where search engines aren't going to index it. Because anytime we go to a page and we see different content, or if you reload and you see different content, that does look a little strange. So if you can, it's better to use robots.txt or htaccess files or something to make sure that Googlebot doesn't index your A/B testing. Failing that, what I would do is I wouldn't use a PHP redirect. I would try to use something server-side to actually serve up the two pages in place. The one thing to be careful about, and I touched on this a while ago, earlier in another session, was you should not do anything special for Googlebot. Just treat it like a regular user. That's going to be the safest thing in terms of not being treated like cloaking. And let's wrap up. Todd asks another question. He says, oh heck, how about a real question? Ginger or Marianne? I'm going to go Marianne. Alright, that's enough for another session.